everyone, Bernard here. I hope you're all staying safe and well, and welcome to the Citizen channel. We do a City Pass feature today, one of our regular things. It's a History Boys feature as we look back at games between Manchester City and Everton. Yes, at the various places: Hyde Road, Main Road, the Etihad Stadium. Although I don't, did we touch upon the Etihad Stadium today? I'm not too sure, but you know, we've played Everton a lot of times, haven't we? So we're going to look back at some previous meetings from way back when, and some sort of more recent memories, certainly in our days, or my age, guys, of going and stuff like that. So please join me as we have a look at the History Boys feature on Manchester City versus Everton today. Please, if you're new to that channel, push that subscribe button. Please tell your City supporting friends about this channel if you can. That way, all the help I can get to get those subscribers up would be fantastic. Please push that notification button if you enjoy what I do. I try and give you some information as accurate as I can. I'm not always perfect. Sometimes obviously my mouth doesn't keep in line with my brain. I say certainly the wrong thing. I try and pick these things up on edits and add them to the screen if I said anything wrong. But all constructive comments are very, very welcome. If I do get anything wrong, just let me know. And of course, your memories are very welcome as well of these sort of things we're going to talk about today. Perhaps not the ones back in time. I mean, even I'm not old enough for that, but some of the newer ones anyway. So please push that notification button. You'll also see some stuff on my film and TV channel as well. If that's of any interest, please go over there and have a look at that. I do reviews on film and TV and do some information vlogs as well, like DVD releases and what's coming to the cinema, that sort of thing. So if you or anyone you know might be interested, please point them in my direction. Again, I would be very grateful. But it's football today. It's Manchester City. It's City's past. And if you do need any followers or friends on Facebook or Twitter, I post loads of City stuff on there as well. So seek me out, and I do follow and friend everyone back. Just give us a couple of 2 or 3 days to check. And of course, if you've got any comments, leave them. And of course, if you can't comment today, just give us a thumbs up. It's nice to get views, but it's nice to get thumbs up. Right, Manchester City versus Everton. League meetings we're talking today. We're not talking about cups or anything like that. We're talking about actual league meetings between the two teams. There's been plenty of them. We've played 87 times at home against Everton, so that's not bad. That's one of the highest, I would imagine, in all the clubs we've played. We've won 47, so that's not bad. Drawn 21. Lost 19, and we scored 149 goals, so a bit under 2 a game, which is fair enough, and let 84 in, so just under 1 a game, so that's not too bad, is it? Our very, very first meeting was at Hyde Road in 1899-1900 season. Yeah, it was on December the 23rd. Happy Christmas. So yeah, just before Christmas, 1899. It wasn't overly happy though. We did get beat 2-1 that day. The crowd was estimated anywhere between 14 and 20,000. So I'll stick with the 20,000 because that sounds better. City's goal was scored by, of course, Billy Meredith that day, the legend Mr. Meredith. And Gray and Settle scored the Everton goal. So they're going to say a 2-1 win for Everton and a 2-1 loss for us. So that was our very first meeting. Our biggest win, again, we move on about nearly 60 years, was in 1957-58. Yeah, it was not the biggest crowd at Main Road at the time, just 20,912, so not fantastic, but it was December. It was probably a few, 57, 58, probably have to save a few quid people with Christmas coming up. So it was a 6-2 win, yeah, back on December the 7th, 1957. This was, you may know this, you may not know this, obviously more notable for the fact that a Ken Barnes hat-trick and all 3 were penalties. Hey, we could do with someone like that now, couldn't we, to be honest with you? McAdams got a couple of goals, and Hayes was the other scorer. Everton's Jimmy Harris scored both of Everton's goal. I think actually held a 2-0 lead in this one from looking back at some records. So they're actually winning 2-0, and we went on to beat them 6-2. Our team that day was Troutman, Levers, Ewing, Cliff Sear, Barnes, Barlow, Warhurst, Joe Hayes, Paddy Fagan or Fionan. I don't know how you pronounce that name. Is it Fionan? But obviously he was better known as Paddy Fagan. I know it's probably a bit of an insult, isn't it? Paddy's just a generalisation for Irish players, but that's how he was better known anyway. It's a different world then, wasn't it? Billy McAdams and Bobby Johnston, of course, was also playing. Our biggest defeat, yeah, a bit more modern, a bit more in my time, a bit more in my scrapbooks time as well. So we can have a look at various things I sort of did at the time when I was putting these scrapbooks together. I did some scrapbooks between about 1990 and 1995, 96. So obviously our biggest defeat was in 92, 93. Yeah, May the 8th, 93, so we're not great, obviously, at May the 8th, so we're getting there. We're the last game of the season. A curl, penalty and White were our goals in that game, but Everton's goals were scored by Jackson, a couple by Peter Beagrie, Peter Beardsley scored, and a guy called Preki as well. This, of course, was Peter Reid's last full season in charge. He would actually be kicked out the following season, obviously, with all this takeover problems with Swales, etc. The starting 11 for City that day, interestingly enough, we'll talk a bit more about the goalkeeper in a moment. Martin Margetson was in goal. He started the game. He certainly didn't finish it. Ray Ranson, number 2, again, we'll mention him again in a little while. Terry Phelan, Steve McMahon, Keith Curl, Michelle Vonk, David Mike, Mike Sherron, Niall Quinn, Gary Flitcroft and Rick Holder. Yeah, we'll mention Gary again in a bit as well. Attendance, not fantastic for a last home game of the season, 25,180, but there was a lot of anger about. Yeah, I mean, we did actually finish in the top half of that table, 9th, but obviously that was a bit of a drop from the previous couple of seasons with Peter Reid, of course. But we were sadly well beaten, of course, by Howard Kendall's Everton then. Obviously, we'd had all the furore of that, hadn't we, a season or two earlier. They actually finished 13th, but did manage to slaughter us that day. And the fans' discontent was always evident. There were still repercussions from the FA Cup home defeat to Spurs a couple of months before, if you remember, with the suspended sentence hanging over us for crowd trouble. The front cover of the programme, I've got the programme there, and I'll just read out what it says. There's little words on the very front cover of the programme. It didn't happen often. A start warning to City fans. Important notice to spectators, it says. Following the recent FA Commission of Inquiry into the crowd disturbance at the City-Tottenham Hotspur Cup tie, which imposed a suspended sentence on the club, it is imperative that all spectators be aware that any further repetition of crowd misbehaviour will have serious implications for Manchester City. It is an offence to encroach on the playing area at any time, and all City supporters are urged to keep off the pitch before, during and after each game. Remember, for the good of Manchester City Football Club, do not go on the pitch at any time, including after the match. So there you go, start words on the warning on the programme that we all got. Obviously, we bought the programme beforehand. Inside the programme, yeah, there's going to be some images on screen. GMP had images of fans they still wanted to question. An interesting bunch, to say the least. And not to say they were all guilty of anything. They just obviously wanted wanted them to come forward and help with the police with their inquiries, of course. Sadly, obviously, it didn't go too well off the pitch either. I'm going to read a match report from journalist Bill Mills, whose headline the following day was actually Swales hit in new shame. So obviously there you go. It wasn't the greatest, was it? I'm just reading from his report the following. This is a match report, don't forget, but obviously it talks about off the pitch elements as well. Manchester City 2, Everton 5. City chairman Swales was pelted with eggs and flying debris as furious fans erupted over the latest main road disaster. Fighting broke out between City supporters in the main stand and police cordoned off the pitch to prevent another invasion. Didn't heed the words, did we? I don't think I was wanting to get on the pitch, to be honest with you. I was sort of quite happy standing there watching what was going on. Stewards also packed into the director's box to protect Swales, but his new sky blue jacket was splattered and he left for the safety of the boardroom in shirt sleeves amid cries of Swales out. I'm sure there was worse than that. Fellow director Ian Niven was also hit by an egg, as was Everton boss Howard Kendall, sitting below the VIP seat. Swell said, "I don't mind the booing at all, but I don't like the throwing of things. It was a disgraceful end to a season that started with high hopes and ended with rivals united as champions and City woeful, awful, also ran just to rub it in, you know." City's jaded started nightmares with rookie keeper Martin Margetson in for injured Tony Colton taking the brunt of boss Peter Reid's anger. It was his first game of the season, and he was axed at half-time with Everton 3-1 ahead. Yeah, he dragged him off. It was awful. It wasn't the greatest keeper, as most guys know who watched Martin Margetson. But yeah, he was subbed at half-time. How despairing is that? He had no chance with Matthew Jackson's 6-minute opener, but then he blundered badly when ex-Blue Andy Hinchcliffe, another favourite of ours, whipped over a corner. Margetson flapped at a close-range shot and Peter Beagrie hammered home the loose ball. He was completely at fault for the third, Terry Phelan's back pass rolled nicely for him, but he panicked and miscued straight to P.S.G, whose snapshot hit the post and Beardsley followed up to slot home. City gave themselves a glimmer of hope with a David White header in the 39th minute, but in the second half, new keeper Andy Dibble was unable to stop the rot. Tony Coulty pulled the ball back for P.S.G to whip in a fourth with a vicious swerver. Jason Kearton took over from the back strain victim Neville Southall, and bad back with the goalkeeper. In the 73rd minute, he had to pick the ball out of the net when Curl lashed home a penalty over Hinchcliffe's handball, so both starting keepers didn't finish this. I don't think that happens often, does it? But Everton had the last 6 minutes from time with Beagrie jinking across the box before beating Dibble. I'm sure he did his dramatic gymnastics as well after that one. Tempers has flared on the pitch with Coaty, Marc, Ward and Beagrie being booked along with City's Ray Ransom, but it was nothing to the fury elsewhere. Reid fumed, "I'm not conceded 5 goals since I became a manager. It was the worst performance since I become boss. I can have players playing badly, but I can't have them not competing. We were poor. In fact, we were just awful. I made the decision about Margetson because the young kid had a bad time out there, but he'll be back." Probably. Kendall agreed. Kendall said, "I was hit by an egg, but it's not a big deal." So there you go. It could have been a lot worse, couldn't it, than an egg? Yeah. Reid's view after the game and his little after-match thoughts. He went on to say, "That was an unacceptable performance from a side representing City. It was the first time we conceded 5 goals in my time as manager. I can accept that the team will have an off day occasionally, but I will not accept are players who do not compete, and that is what we saw today. There is no point hiding from the fact that young Margetson had a torrid first half, although our senior players didn't do much to help him. I felt it was best to take him off at half time because his confidence had taken a battering, but I still have every faith in him. The sort of experience can happen to a young player, and we will make sure that he bounces back from this setback." Yeah, and the player ratings, I think, sort of sum it all up on the day. Just read through these player ratings. Form guide: Margetson, Ranson, Vonk, Curl, Phelan and McMahon all got 5 out of 10. And then the first one who had a half-decent game was, of course, Mr. Gary Flitcroft. He got 7 out of 10. And then we got White, Sharon, Quinn and Holden all on 5 out of 10. The subs were all right. Dibble and Simpson came on as substitutes. They managed a 6 rating, so that wasn't too bad. And the man of the match, Gary Flitcroft, who kept his reputation intact in a match which his teammates want to quickly forget. So good old Gary Flitcroft. He would become the City supporters player of the season that season as well. So well done, Gary. He sort of is the only one in that sort of team that did himself any justice, to be honest with you. And it was said we'd talk about Ray Ranson. Yeah, that was actually his last game in a City shirt. That was his last game for Manchester City. I have fond memories of Ray Ranson. Yeah, so that's my little memories there in the scrapbook. Just looking back at things, I mean, this is one of my earliest programmes. I wouldn't have been at that game, 62, 63. I was a little bit too young. I mean, if you were at that game, fair enough. But that took place on the 3rd of November 1962. And it was a significant season, the 62-63 season, obviously, if you know your history stuff about City. And it was obviously significant for Les McDowell's Manchester City. And, of course, Harry Catterick was in charge of Everton, so it was a significant season for him as well. We'd actually sat at 14th of 22. It didn't sound too bad, but there's only 4 points literally covering the bottom 11. All right, there's 2 points for a win in those days. There's only 4 points covered the bottom 11 after 15 games. So not the greatest start, not the worst start. It could have been worse, but Everton were doing all right. They sat second on goal average to Spurs. Well, they also had a game in hand. And some of these players will be familiar to the league, obviously league title winners a few years later. We had Harry Dowd in goal, Bobby Kennedy, Cliff Sear, John Benson, Bill Levers, Alan Oakes, Neil Young, Peter Dobin, Alex Harley, George Hanna and Joe Hayes were the guys who actually started the game. A fairly decent crowd at the time, even though, say, City ended up with quite low crowds by the end of that season, but a crowd of 40,336, and it was a 1-1 draw with Dobin getting the City goal. and Wignall scoring for Everton. Yeah, and sadly, as I said, it was significant, 62-63, because it would see the end of the manager, Les McDowell, as we lost our first division status that season, finishing second bottom. And that's, as I said, that's all the end of the manager's long reign, and he's been there quite a few years. City probably, just as an excuse, probably some part reason. I mean, all teams, it was one of the worst winters for bad weather for football in time, and we sort of didn't sit in for themselves, didn't play a single game between December the 16th and February the 23rd. Not one single match took place for City. As I said, it did affect other teams, but City were sort of perhaps a little bit more affected than other teams, and after 6 defeats out of 7, with games coming thick and fast in March and the first week of April, City sort of dropped down in amongst the dead men. Then that sort of punished us. We never really quite recovered from that, even though I say we did do a reasonable run in April. We did, but unfortunately, all the damage had been done by that thing, and obviously we never quite recovered and got relegated. Everton, yeah, as I said, it was significant for Everton as well. Harry Catterick's Everton, they would go on to win the title, to lift the title. So I say the bad weather didn't affect them, did it? They went on to win the title, finishing 6 points clear of Spurs by the end of the season. So all happy there. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that little History Boys feature on Manchester City versus Everton. Let me know any special memories you got, or anything you can remember about any of that. And me and you may have been at this one. I know a couple of guys I chat to on the live shows and on the comments section, etc. Just a wee bit older than me and remember some of these games. So let me know if you've any specific memories. I know it's a long time ago and it's very hard, isn't it? But sometimes when you read these little reports and stuff, it sort of just clicks something in your mind to remember, doesn't it? So let me know in your comments anyway. And as I say, hope you enjoyed this latest version of the History Boys. Whatever you're going to do the rest of the day, have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your families. More importantly, let's all look after each other. Till we meet here again on the Citizen channel, or perhaps you have a flit across, have a look at my film and TV channel. All I ever ask you to do is please stay safe, Blues. Come on, City. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.